Are you serious right now? All my girlfriend did was stop on a patch of grass to tie her shoe, and somehow that turned into a screaming match, a $500 citation, and threats of eviction. Welcome to Glendale Pines, where the HOA isn't just about keeping lawns neat. It's a full-on dictatorship run by a woman named Cheryl Faulkner. If you've ever dealt with an HOA, Karen, you know exactly the type. Clipboard in hand, power suit in 80-degree weather, smile so tight it could cut glass. Smash that like button if you've ever had to deal with someone like her, and stick around, because she thought she was untouchable until she messed with the wrong woman. It started on a Sunday, mid-afternoon. Julia was walking our golden retriever, Toby, through the community like she always does. She's lived here longer than I have, actually bought the house with her own money years before we met. It's a quiet, gated neighborhood, supposed to be peaceful. But peace isn't in Cheryl Faulkner's vocabulary. Julia had just rounded the cul-de-sac, stopping on a grassy median near the fountain. She leaned down, fixed Toby's leash, and adjusted her sneaker. That's when Cheryl pounced. "Excuse me! Excuse me!" Julia looked up, startled. Cheryl was marching toward her like a prosecutor with a verdict already in hand. "You're not allowed to let your dog relieve himself on community landscaping. That's grounds for fine and possible removal from the property." Julia blinked. "He didn't go to the bathroom. I was just tying my shoe," Cheryl scoffed. "Oh, I saw it. I saw the leg lift. Toby's a 5-year-old golden who doesn't lift his leg. He squats like a polite boy. But try explaining that to a woman who sees crime in every shadow." Julia tried to keep it light. "Ma'am, if he had, I would have cleaned it up. I have bags." "Wrong answer," Cheryl went off. "You people think you're above the rules. I don't care who you think you are. This is my community, and I will enforce the standards. We do not tolerate disrespect of public spaces. You're already on my list after that unsanctioned wreath on your door in December." "You mean the holiday decoration?" Julia asked, incredulous. "That was a direct violation of Section 8.4, unapproved seasonal embellishments visible from the street." Julia took a breath, but Cheryl wasn't done. "I'm writing you up for this. That's a $500 fine. And depending on the board's review, you may be asked to appear for disciplinary proceedings. Possible revocation of community privileges. Translation: no pool, no gym, and no access to the clubhouse." At this point, neighbors had started to peek out. Phones were filming. Julia stood there, shoulders back, face calm. But I know her. Her hands were shaking. "I'm not trying to cause trouble," she said, voice low. "This is ridiculous." "Ridiculous is how rules fall apart," Cheryl snapped. "This isn't just about you. This is about preserving order." Then came the final blow. Cheryl stepped forward and actually took a photo of Julia and Toby. "For the file," she said, "in case you try to dispute it." Julia turned without another word and walked back home. She didn't slam the door. She didn't cry. She just sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded in her lap. Toby curled against her. That's when I walked in. "What happened?" I asked. She didn't answer at first, just handed me the citation Cheryl had filled out on the HOA letterhead. I read it once, then again. Then I sat down across from her and said, "All right." "You didn't tell her who you are, did you?" Julia shook her head. "Why would I?" I smiled. "Good, then she has no idea who she's messing with." I'd kept a low profile in Glendale Pines on purpose. The house was Julia's. The community was tight-knit, and I figured the less people knew about me, the easier life would be. But Cheryl Faulkner had just declared war on the wrong front porch. And the thing about me, I don't like bullies, especially ones who hide behind bylaws and bark like they own people. I spent that night digging. HOA records, meeting minutes, budget reports, most of it public if you knew where to look. And I knew exactly where to look. Cheryl had been president of the Glendale Pines HOA for 6 years. The bylaws limited presidents to 2 consecutive terms unless an exception vote was recorded. But I couldn't find a single documented vote past year 4. Odd. Then came the fines. Over $67,000 in violations issued in the last 18 months. Half of them against 5 specific homes, all owned by single women or elderly residents. Julia's name showed up 4 times. One citation was for excessive seasonal lighting. She'd hung 3 strands of fairy lights on her balcony. Then I found the vendor invoices, landscaping upgrades that didn't match the community's current state. $12,000 for new hedges around the pool area. The hedges were the same they'd always been. The contractor listed was a company out of town. I checked the business registry. Guess whose nephew owned it? By midnight, I had a folder. By morning, I had a strategy. Julia watched me pour coffee with that look, eyebrow arched, half amused, half worried. "You're not going full Batman over a HOA citation, are you?" she asked. "This isn't about a citation," I said. "It's about control. This woman's turned the HOA into her personal hammer, and now she's trying to break you with it." Julia sipped her coffee. "So what? We report her." We end her. That day I made calls. I still had contacts from my consulting days. Real estate compliance, civil oversight, even a local investigative reporter who owed me a favor. I didn't want headlines, not yet, but I wanted eyes, witnesses. Then I checked the community calendar. HOA meeting, Thursday night, 6:30 p.m. Open discussion on recent incidents of rule violations and resident behavior. Classic Cheryl language for let's name and shame people. I booked a room at the nearby business center under Julia's name, ordered a projector, quietly sent out a group email to select neighbors with a note. "You'll want to be at Thursday's meeting. Trust me." Meanwhile, Cheryl ramped up. By Tuesday, she'd posted a public notice in the clubhouse with Julia's name. Multiple violations pending review. Residents advised to maintain appropriate boundaries. Neighbors started to whisper. A few avoided eye contact. One woman, Mrs. Langston, slipped Julia a note while walking her dog. "You're not the first." She did this to my husband when he spoke up about budget spending. I added that to the folder. By Thursday, it wasn't just about us anymore. Cheryl had built her throne on fear, fines, and silence. But she'd forgotten something. Even the quiet ones eventually snap. The meeting room filled up fast. Cheryl stood at the front like a monarch addressing peasants. Tight red blazer, gold pin shaped like a key, clipboard against her chest like a shield. She smiled at Julia like they were best friends. "We appreciate everyone coming out," she began. "There have been concerning behaviors recently, and the board felt it necessary to clarify the standards that keep Glendale Pines such a desirable community." She clicked the remote. The projector screen lit up with a slideshow titled Community Standards and Enforcement. A photo of Julia and Toby on the grass popped up. This was taken Sunday, a clear violation of landscaping policy. Now, I understand some residents believe these rules are minor, but minor infractions lead to major decay. "Sorry to interrupt," I said, standing from the second row. "Mind if I add something?" Cheryl stiffened. "This is board presentation time. Resident comments come after." "I'm a resident." "I don't believe we've met." "Probably not. I'm Julia's partner. And this," I said, lifting my briefcase, "is what I like to call receipts." Cheryl blinked. "I'm sorry. Did you or did you not issue $67,000 in citations over 18 months, most of which targeted a select group of homeowners?" Gasps, murmurs. Someone coughed loudly. Cheryl opened her mouth. "We enforce violations fairly." "Interesting. Because I pulled your citations, and a majority come from handwritten forms, not electronic logs, no timestamps, no photographic evidence. That's not standard procedure. That's personal." I walked to the front, clicking the second remote I'd connected to the projector while she wasn't looking. The screen shifted. Vendor invoices, overcharges, duplicate payments. "Let's talk about community funds," I said. "Why did a company run by your nephew receive $12,000 for landscaping that never happened? And why was $8,000 spent on clubhouse upgrades that no one can point to?" Cheryl's mouth opened, then closed. Her hand gripped the clipboard so tight her knuckles whitened. "You don't know what you're talking about." "No," I said, letting the last slide hit. HOA bylaws, section on term limits, with the note, "No exception vote recorded." I know exactly what I'm talking about. And the room knew it too. The silence after that slide hit was so heavy it felt like gravity had tripled in the room. Cheryl didn't move. She just stared at the screen like if she focused hard enough, it might disappear. But it didn't, and neither did I. A cough broke the stillness, then a voice from the back. Is that true? It was Mr. Dorsey from Unit 4B. Older, meticulous, voted for Cheryl 3 terms in a row. I turned to face the room. Every document here was pulled from public records, HOA filings, and vendor registries. All verifiable. I want copies, someone else muttered. I'll print them tonight, I said. Every one of you deserves to see where your dues have really been going. Cheryl slammed her clipboard on the table. Enough! Her voice cracked as she tried to recover her footing. This is a smear campaign. None of these accusations have gone through proper board channels. They can't, I said calmly. You control every channel. That was the moment it shifted. You could feel it, like the air had changed. People who'd sat silent for years started murmuring. Mrs. Langston stood. I got fined for planting sunflowers by my garage. Said it violated the uniform aesthetic rule. They threatened to remove my porch bench, said another. I use it to rest my hip. She told my husband if he didn't repaint our door in 72 hours, they'd pursue legal action. Voices rising, stacking, overlapping. Cheryl tried to regain control, calling names, raising her hands like a conductor losing her orchestra. But it was too late. This meeting is over, she shouted. No, Julia said, rising from her seat. It's not. It was the first time she'd spoken. All eyes turned to her. Even Cheryl went quiet. I tried to be respectful. I tried to follow your rules. But you don't want respect. You want control. You want people afraid of you. You don't protect this neighborhood. You choke it. And I'm done letting you choke me. Someone clapped. Then another. The sound grew, swelling until it filled the room. That's when Cheryl snapped. I warned you, she shrieked, pointing at Julia. You're done here. I'm filing for forced removal. You're a disruptive presence. And per section 11.6 of the code. You mean the code you rewrote without a board vote? I asked. The version you filed last April, with no signatures and 2 pages missing? Her mouth worked, but no words came out. Then the door opened. 2 men in plain suits stepped inside. Clean cut, calm, but unmistakably official. One of them held a manila envelope. Miss Faulkner? She turned, confused. Who are you? We're from the County Oversight Committee. We've received multiple filings regarding HOA mismanagement, election irregularities, and misuse of community funds. We're placing the board under temporary administrative review effective immediately. She laughed, high and brittle. You have no jurisdiction here. Actually, the taller agent said, we do. He handed her the envelope. This is a cease authority notice. You are suspended pending investigation. The room exploded. People stood, shouted questions, whispered finally and about time. Cheryl's face drained of color. You think this is over? She hissed at Julia. You think you've won? You've just made enemies you don't even see coming. No, I said, stepping beside Julia. You made those enemies yourself. We just stopped pretending we didn't see it. One of the officers gestured. Ma'am, we'll need you to step outside with us. Cheryl stood frozen. Then slowly, like a collapsing statue, she turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her. And just like that, the room exhaled. Someone laughed, someone cried. One woman whispered, I feel like I can breathe for the first time in years. But Julia just sat down, stroking Toby's head. Her hands still trembled. Not from fear anymore, just the come down, the weight of everything crashing off her shoulders. I knelt beside her. You good? I asked. She looked at me for a long second, then nodded. I am now. The next few days felt like waking up in a neighborhood someone had unplugged and restarted. Without Cheryl's shadow hanging over every flower pot and mailbox, Glendale Pines seemed brighter. People actually waved at each other. A couple of kids rode their bikes down the main road, something no one dared do before without getting yelled at for creating a nuisance. The HOA clubhouse, once a fortress of paranoia, reopened its doors without requiring a scan of your ID and a signature in triplicate. But the fallout wasn't over. By the end of the week, the County Oversight Committee posted a bulletin. A formal audit of the HOA was underway. Cheryl's financial records, what she hadn't already tried to delete, were in the hands of investigators. Anonymous tips flooded in. Residents who'd once been terrified to speak now submitted statements, some with receipts dating back years. One neighbor brought in photos showing Cheryl inspecting garbage bins at 5 a.m. in latex gloves, searching for violations. And then there was the big reveal: the vendor contracts, the fake ballots, the backroom deals with her cousin's company for security upgrades that never materialized. She hadn't just manipulated the rules, she'd rewritten them in her image over and over, like a tyrant with a Word doc. The HOA board held an emergency vote. Cheryl was permanently removed from all positions of authority. A temporary steering committee, made up of volunteer residents, was put in place to restore order and transparency. Julia was one of the first people asked to join. She declined. "I'm not trying to rule this place," she said. "I just want to live in it." But they named her honorary chair anyway. Moving forward, every rule change required a community-wide vote. Every fine had to be documented and photographed. Transparency became more than a buzzword. It became survival. And Cheryl? She vanished from public view. Rumor had it she'd left the state. Someone said they saw her on a bus headed north, muttering about ungodly neighbors and traitors. Another claimed she was trying to start a new HOA chapter in a retirement community 2 counties over. I wasn't worried, because now everyone knew what to watch for. On a warm Saturday morning, Julie and I sat on the front porch sipping coffee. Toby snored at our feet. For the first time in months, the air felt still, safe. "You really think it's over?" she asked. I looked at her, at the quiet strength in her voice, the way she held herself a little taller now. "No," I said. "I think it's just beginning. But this time, we're not the ones being watched." Across the street, Margaret Langston was planting sunflowers again. This time, no one stopped her. Tom Carter waved as he walked by with his toolbox. Someone on the HOA committee had asked him to help fix the clubhouse railing. Volunteers, not demands. Conversation, not citations. The neighborhood was healing. And as for us, we didn't move, didn't sell, didn't hide. We stayed exactly where we were, on that same corner Cheryl had once tried to claim with threats and paper. Because the truth was simple. Power only works if people give it to you. And the second you take it back, even a self-proclaimed queen like Cheryl Faulkner becomes just another name in a file drawer marked closed. The story wasn't about revenge. It was about remembering that no matter how loud someone yells, how many rules they wave around like weapons, sometimes all it takes is standing still, standing firm, and letting them crumble all on their own.